On the first episode of our Fabric Library podcast, we had our chair, Mr. Gary Neiman, and wow, he had some real pearls of wisdom to share with us, not just about running a business, but also in terms of living your life to its fullest potential and, really going out there and achieving what you wanna in ways that you could never imagine before. So much experience and so much to learn from. And, that podcast, the first episode was a real hit, not just internally among the Fabric Library crowd, but also a lot of comments and feedback from those outside of the organization. And it was just fantastic. And that's why we decided, you know what, if we can learn so much from Mr. Gary, there's also so much to learn from another individual who is part of our organization, our CEO. He is here with us on this episode, and he too is someone who has lots and lots of wisdom to share, lots of experience in multiple fields, not just running business, but also in several different walks of life. And there's so much we learn from him every day. And as I always say on this podcast, the whole idea of having this podcast is so that it's not just us at Fabric Library who benefit from these things, but we also like the fact that others too can benefit from some of these things that we discuss here. So for this episode, we have our very own CEO, Dr. Let me get that right, Dr. Sanjay Jadhav, who we see every day at Fabric Library. And you're wondering when I say doctor, what I mean by doctor? Yes, really a medical doctor, not some doctor degree or a doctor title that you get from universities these days, but an actual medical doctor. Doctor, how are you doing? All good?
All good, Samit. Thank you.
Welcome to the studio. How you like the setup?
Absolutely fabulous.
Right. Now, why we have you here is obviously, in our meetings that are in our everyday discussions, like I said to Gary also, there's so much we draw from you. There's so much we learn from you with all your experience. And it's only fair that, we share that with the world through this podcast. But before we get to all of the experience that you have, let's first find out what's a medical doctor doing in a fabric industry as a CEO. Where did all this happen, and how did you end up being the CEO of a fabric company?
Well, I am a seasoned player for this question, because if at all I have faced one question quite number of times in my life, it's this question: what a doctor is doing in business or in textile.
Exactly, yes.
Well, it so happened that of course, I was never anywhere thinking of business or fabric business or textile business. But as I was growing up, I wanted to become a doctor. There was no doubt about it. And wanted to be in medicine. Precisely which branch, what, was definitely not clear to me. But right. I did want to become a doctor. There was no doubt about that.
Was there something that triggered that ambition as a child?
The reason why it triggered the ambition was perhaps it was a typical cultural pattern that or a socio-cultural pattern that we had back then in India, that the best profession that if at all somebody wants to really opt for, and provided quote unquote you are intelligent, then it would be either engineering or medicine. And being from middle class or upper middle class, whatever you call it by standards, the dad was also saying that study hard and try to get into the best of the schools and colleges. So naturally, and we were four brothers, so the eldest one decided to enter into the Indian Institute of Technology, supposedly the highest institute to get for engineering and all. And then my elder brother, number two, myself and my younger brother, all of us, we went to medical school.
Okay.
So the idea was very simple: get into medical school, become a doctor, marry a doctor, start a polyclinic. It is as simple a matter as that.
Write prescriptions all your life.
all my life, and perhaps scribble something which only the pharmacist can understand.
Yes.
But it was not the case, because by the time I went into medicine, I really loved it. I really enjoyed it. It is still my first love, medicine. However, as I started moving towards my post-graduation, I realized one thing, that my options after becoming a surgeon are rather challenging to me, in the sense that either I get into the private practice or I start working as a general surgeon into any of the institutes. Or the third option was to go for super specialization, and for which I got selected into cardiothoracic surgery. So perhaps I could have been, and this interview could have been with a cardiothoracic surgeon if I would have gone forward. But then when I thought between the two choices of doing a job or getting into private practice, I had to prefer the first one, because I didn't want my father, who'd really toiled hard all his life to, give the best possible education to us and perhaps exhausted all his resources on us, to again, try for me to get some capital to start my practice. One. And also, I realized one thing: if at all I invest so much into my private practice, perhaps I might be, the situation might force me to earn the money faster to pay back or to get back my investment, return on my investment. And I never liked the idea of medicine being seen through a business lens.
Right.
That was not in my blood.
Right.
So I said, well, then perhaps the job is my only option, and let me get into the service. And then I started saying, if I'm going to go into service, what is the best service? Then I realized that, to become a doctor in Indian Army would be a better option. Okay. And I got into it, got selected, and it so happened that amongst the 50 direct permanent commissions that normally the Indian Army Medical Service gives, I stood 10th in the list and I got in. I was about to join Army, and one of the senior Army person who was already working in Armed Forces Doctors Service, it's called Medical Corps, I met him and I said, sir, I'm joining this course. And he said, why are you doing it?
I was going to ask this question. Why Army?
So I said, well, if I'm going to do the service, might as well do a service to the soldiers, to the nation. And yet you're not into any kind of pressure of any other thing. And the advice given by the then brigadier whom I met, he said that, look, unless you complete your post-graduation, don't join. So I just dropped the idea of joining. I said, I am not joining. I came back, completed my post-graduation. But in those 3 years of post-graduation, a lot of water has flown under the bridge, and I changed again. And I said, if at all I'm going to do the service, should I become a medical officer for the central government? Or should I again go back into the army?
Right.
And when I was toying with this idea, I got into what is called as the Central Government Medical Service. So I was to become a medical doctor for Government of India. That's how it was. Okay. And to be posted into various hospitals anywhere in India.
Right.
And again, when the appointment letter came, again the thought came that, is that what I want to do as a job? And then I realized, what is the job that is really coveted in this country? And the most coveted job in India that time, now, and perhaps in future is a service called Indian Administrative Service. These are civil services of India, right, wherein you become secretary to the government. You always with the most what are called as a plum postings in government, right, etc. And you gain a lot of respect because you travel in an amber-colored light car. There's a driver. People know you as a district collector, and you become a divisional commissioner and all. I said, let me try that. If at all I'm doing a service, right, then perhaps this is another field where I can serve large number of people.
So at the very core, your idea was that I just don't want to get into something to make money and live a comfortable life. I want to be able to give back something.
Absolutely. Because I realized one thing, that if at all I am what I am, is because of the society that made me. It is the
community that has shaped you into who you are.
It is my nation. It is my society that made me where I am. So it's first my duty to give something back to them. And yes, in the whole run, then maybe make some money for you, or maybe you survive. So I was never kind of attracted to any other motive. So it was the main motive. And I said, if the service is the main motive, then perhaps you have a larger scope of doing the service. But the question came that you cannot become a civil servant with a qualification like doctor, because the subjects that you study and you appear for the exams are not at all from medical field.
Right.
So I said, what are the subjects I am going to have? And turns out that there is no medical subject. And all I studied for 13 long years in my life was only medical subject, medicine, the surgery, the gynecology, nothing was there. And that put me on a back foot. But then I thought, what if I try these subjects?
And you want to study again?
And I said, I have to study again. I said, all right, let me try it.
Now, how old are you at this point of time?
I was a young postgraduate of 25 and a half.
Okay.
Now, generally, if you get into medicine, the minimum age stipulated is 17 when you enter.
Right.
And I was the youngest boy in the class of that medical cohort. So I passed out my post-graduation at 25 and a half. That gave me only one chance to appear for civil services. Normally, there are 3.
Okay.
So I had only one chance. I said, let me take this chance, maybe 6 months. If I didn't get through, then I'll go for super specialization in cardiothoracic surgery. And things were pretty clear for me. I was in double mind whether I'll get through or not, but I kept on studying. And lo and behold, I got through the first screening examination where about 1.2 million students are screened and only about 7,000 are selected. I got through.
Wow.
And I became serious about it. It looks like that the Almighty also wants to be, wants me to go into the same line. I again started studying for the main examination where about 7,000 are screened and only 700 are taken in.
Amazing.
I got in again in that, and then it was the last and the most tough part, and still supposed to be the toughest part of the examination, civil service examination, which is called the interview.
Right.
And that's one of the most grilling part of the whole process. It happens for about 45 minutes. It happens in front of a board that comprises about 12 people. Almost 80% of them are retired senior most bureaucrats.
Right.
2 or 3 of them from army background of the general stature and above. And I was confident. I went in there, gave my interview. I stood third in India in my final interview.
Wow.
And got allotted to the civil services. So there was the first change in the life where a doctor entered into an administrative career. So that was the stage 1 of the checkered career that I was having so far.
Right. Yeah. Now, just to go back a little bit, no, this entire studiousness and that will to give back to society and that pure intention of wanting to give back, was there something in your childhood that shaped that? I've heard that you're from a very small town, a relatively unknown town in India. Tell me a little bit about childhood, growing up. I mean, what, 60s, post-independence
60s,
in India? How was
yeah,
life there? Which town?
1962. My town was a very small town in one of the small district of a state of Maharashtra, which is part of one of the state of India.
Right.
The town was so small that we had no phone. We didn't know that the phone exists.
Wow, okay.
We were taken from our village to other bigger towns to see how a bakery looks like.
Wow,
so there
that
was
remote.
There was nothing,
Wow.
right?
Okay.
And the poverty was so much where I studied that the school, my first 3 standards of my school were in a temple because there was no school building. Right. And what was the ambition that time? So I still remember the teacher asking everyone, what do you want to be? And that's a common question every teacher asks. And the highest ambition expressed in the class was, of course, crossing the bus driver and the railway ticket checker and all. So one of them said, I want to join army as a soldier.
Okay.
And that's where the ambition ended.
Right.
So that's the environment that I was in. A town was something to be scared of.
Right.
A bigger town like Bombay, and those days it was called Bombay, not Mumbai.
Not Mumbai.
Was a town that we could only imagine or see in the films.
Right.
But seeing films itself was so rare that I had my first movie or first film I saw when I was in 6th standard.
Wow.
That is the first time I got encounter with the screen as such.
It's very hard to believe an Indian saying that.
Yeah.
Because cinema is so big.
That's how it was. Yeah. But thanks to my father, what he did is at an opportune moment, he was a banking officer, so he had to go to different places for postings.
Right.
And he moved us from that small village to a little bigger town, from a bigger town to the district place.
Right.
So there was a kind of an acclimatization that he planned for us, and that really helped us.
Yeah, it's shaped you into
and always it was in the house, a continuous discussion was of, you need to study. Right. You have to study. Study is important. Knowledge is important. So it somehow got ingrained into you, and moment you see anybody wise, intelligent, who has really scored very high marks, those were our role models. Those were our heroes. Somebody who stood, topped in the university, topped in the state. I mean, those were the ones who we felt like meeting. So somehow the role models were designed on the lines of knowledge, education, and that's how perhaps the study bug also came in. And it didn't come in just as a something which is needed, but it just came in and suddenly ignited something in me where I felt that s- gaining knowledge gives immense amount of pleasure to me even now.
The greatest saints and the greatest philosophers and the thinkers, they've all said this. The more you learn,
Well, I can't really put myself into a very big league, but I do feel a kind of happiness when when I learn something new. And that's where perhaps I realize that irrespective of which place you are in, as long as you are able to really master the thing that you are doing and gain the complete insight of what you're doing, then the knowledge that comes, perhaps this is called in the modern languages creative pleasure,
Right.
which is again that it's a hedonistic thing, it's hedonism. You have to have it, otherwise you can't do it.
Right.
And that's the reason when subsequently when I changed my careers, etc., that was one point that always remained as the leading point for me to take a decision.
Right. So what you're doing, you do it with everything that you have, and you learn everything about it.
Absolutely.
Right. So now let's fast forward.
Yes.
From a medical doctor that would have been to an IAS officer that wanted to really serve the nation, somehow ended up in Dubai.
Well,
How did that come about?
Before that, I just would like to correct.
Yes.
In IAS is actually a particular service.
Right.
There are many services in civil services. So
Okay.
I was a civil servant,
Right.
commonly referred as Indian Administrative Service, but I was in a service called Indian Trade Service.
Okay.
So this is a service that deals with all the international trade.
Okay.
So I was the one who was into drafting the import and export policy of Government of India. I worked with Ministry of Commerce, worked with few of the best and the top bureaucrats at that point of time, including the top minister at that time, and was a part of the team that formulated the import export policy, etc. And when I was doing all this, I did it for almost 9 years. Things were going fine. But one thing happened, and that was I had too many suggestions. I had too many corrections that I wanted to make.
Right.
I was a pro business person. I was a person pro business community. And I felt that as a government officer, I do not have enough knowledge of business.
Okay.
But I started interacting with business community because they were at the receiving end. They were coming to our office for some work. And that's when I started talking to them, and I realized that they have lots of problems. And when I went into the depth of those problems, I realized that those problems are not seen by the bureaucrats.
Right.
So I realized one thing, that the bureaucracy need to understand the business, and they are there for the business. A bureaucrat should be pro-business.
Right.
It's not that the business is for bureaucrats.
Correct.
Which normally is the notion that we
Yes.
carry because of the power that you have.
Yes.
And I always enjoyed the authority. I never enjoyed the power.
Okay.
And incidentally, in 90% of the cases, bureaucrats enjoy the power,
Yes.
not the authority. And that's where the whole equation gets mixed up. So when I realized this, I started arguing during our meetings of bureaucrats with change in the policy. This should be done, that should be done.
You suddenly started speaking for the businesses,
For the
from
business
their
community.
perspective, in their
And,
shoes.
This was not accepted. This was not something which was welcomed. This was something bizarre. This was something they felt that, well, what is this guy talking about? Instead of enjoying the power that is there, enjoying the supreme status kind of thing given to you, and every industry wants to be in touch with you, the business people want to be in touch with you. And I realized that slowly that perhaps I've come to the place with good intention, but by the time I am in a position to really make a solid change, I might be forced to change internally so much that I might turn out to be a complete important person in terms of the changes that I want to make.
Right.
So the fear started creeping in me that neither I am doing what I intend to do, and or it may take such a long time that I might lose the enthusiasm about it. So that was the time when I started thinking, can I leave? So that's where the second change came.
Right.
And since I was very friendly to the business community, once a gentleman who came in front of me for his work, it was a very complicated work. The previous bureaucrats had really complicated it.
Right.
I made it simple for them. I helped them. And they grew a kind of a friendship with, and I was friendly to many business people. So this particular gentleman said that, look, I'm a businessman, and he was a very successful businessman, very, very excellent class entrepreneur, an export house doing a huge amount of exports.
Right.
And he told me that you're not cut for this chair.
Okay.
And I said, no, I'm a middle class guy. I'm not going to leave my job. He said, no, I'm just giving you a suggestion. In case in future, if you decide to leave the job, please think of my company.
Amazing.
I just took this statement as a general statement and forgotten about it. But when subsequently I got transferred from Delhi to Bombay to my last posting was in Goa. I had a very long honorific title called Deputy Director General of Foreign Trade.
Wow.
I was in charge of the entire Goa region. And that was the time I realized that I'm just a dignified file pusher. I'm not really doing something good for the community, for the business community. And that's when I decided to resign. And resigning a civil service job is considered to be the most mad thing you can do.
Right.
So I knew only one thing: who matters in my life is my wife.
Okay.
And I must say that my wife has been a constant source of inspiration for me. So I went to her and I said, look, I'm giving up a job. And I thought she'll be surprised or she'll be shocked. She's washing utensils. She just looked at me and said that, all right, you do it. If you feel like, you do it. I said, but are you not scared? What will you do then? Because we spent 9 years away from medicine. He said, look, you're a postgraduate.
Yeah.
You have a stethoscope. We need a table and a chair. We can always go back into medicine. And that really gave me a good confidence. I said, yes, because I had kept in touch with medicine. I still keep in touch with the medicine. I still read medicine at least 2 to 3 times in a week.
He's our in-house doctor, by the way. Whenever we have a problem in the office, doc, I'm having a headache, and he knows what to tell us.
All right. So that's how it was. And then she said, and that's when I resigned from my service and I went back to this gentleman who happens to be the father of Mr. Manish Doshi,
Right.
the
Okay.
partner of Fabric
Of course,
Library.
yeah.
And that's it. He called me in. I joined them. And I had a grand interview. And the interview was very simple. Normally in an interview, you're asked about what can you do, etc., what's your qualification, etc. But he knew me already.
Right.
And I knew him. So I just asked him one question. Why do you want to hire me when I don't know anything?
It's like you asked the interviewer.
Yeah, I asked the interviewer. I said, sir, you want to hire me? Fine, I'm very happy about
Why
it.
do you want
But
me?
I'm really intrigued with one question. What skill set I have
Yeah.
that you are trying to hire me? And after a lot of arguments, he said one thing: look, I'm a businessman. I never invest money where there are no returns. Now, is that answer sufficient for you? And that was the day I joined him. And I'm proud to say that it is the same company I'm serving for last 35 years.
Amazing.
I never changed a job. I'm with them. And that's how a doctor who was so far cutting the skin started cutting the fabric.
Right. Let's digress. Before I get you to life in Dubai, you mentioned your wife.
Yes.
Greatest source of comfort, your go-to person for all your things. How did you meet her? What's the love story?
Oh, it was not a love story. She is an army man's daughter. She's a brigadier's daughter.
Oh,
So as we have in India, these are all arranged marriages. So
Right.
what happened was her photograph came to me, and there was a mediator who said that she's a good girl. Would you like to marry her? And I was just civil service passed out, most sought after person for marriage. So I said, all right, I'd love to see her. And normally you just meet,
course,
So I said, I informally meet her. And she wrote a letter back to me saying that, look, I just had a small accident on a scooter and my skin, like on the cheek or somewhere, there are the scratches or whatever. So she said, can we put it a month later?
okay.
And that's when I said, no, I'm coming right away. So I went, I met her. And the moment I met her, I realized that I met my life partner.
Amazing.
And that's it. And there was no turning back. And then my wife was actually well educated. She's an MPhil in English literature.
Oh, fantastic.
She was teaching in National Defense Academy. Wow. She also was it's an honor to be a moderator for the passing out parade of the Army cadets, which she conducted for almost 4 years.
Amazing.
And also she is one who was always in touch with senior brass of the Army. In fact, my wife in her childhood has played in the laps of Field Marshal General Manekshaw, on whom there was a recently movie that was released as a Sam Bahadur.
Oh, okay.
So
Okay.
she's from that background, a highly disciplined person, a person with impeccable principles. And I must say that in my life, I perhaps have learnt a lot from her. If I have learned discipline in my life, it is from her. And that's how I learned a lot by observing her. Strict disciplinarian she is, even now. And I kind of matched to her over a period of time by learning from her. So that's how we met, and the story is on.
From the army background, so I guess discipline must be something that's ingrained from childhood. Okay, now let's bring you to Dubai. You came to Dubai what, early 90s?
95.
Okay.
95.
Right.
Yeah,
And Dubai was obviously
95.
very different back then, mostly desert, none of these
Well,
major
it
developments.
was a completely different Dubai, but what brought me Dubai was completely different. It was not the fabric.
Right, okay.
I
Let's hear that story.
I started working in the fabric, worked for about a year. And every time I used to meet my chairman, I used to tell him that, look, sir, because I was so-called a newly born executive,
Right.
trying to give tips of sales and
Right.
others to the chairman. And that
super enthusiastic.
Super enthusiastic, and that audacity only a newcomer has, so which I had. And when I started again and again emphasizing on chairman, saying that, sir, our customers are in Middle East, we already have operations there, but we must always be at the door of the customer.
Right.
Customer service is so important, as if the chairman didn't know. And then he said that, look, I heard a lot that you are always talking like this. Why don't you go and really do that?
Okay.
I said, you mean you want me to go to Middle East? He said, yes. I said, okay. And it was decided that I'll be moving to Dubai. Fair enough. And in a week, he calls me back and says that, look, you're going to Dubai, but not for fabrics.
Okay.
I said, sir, with great difficulty, I'm learning textiles. And you
What do you want me to do?
So what is that you want me to do? No, you're going there and you're going to manufacture and sell gold jewelry.
Wow.
I had a bolt from blue, and I said, sir, I don't know what makes you feel so confident about me, because I can tell you one thing, I do not know what 22 and 24 carats is. I have never seen an ornament, and I've touched it with my hand because it's my wife's department. And what do you want me to do? He said, no, you are not only going to sell it, you're going to manufacture it. I said, but I don't have manufacturing experience. He said, you'll have it.
Wow.
I said, but I need to learn from somewhere. He said, practical learning. I said, where do I go? He said, these are the names. Go to Rajkot, go to Vadodara, go to Calcutta, go to Delhi. These are the names of suppliers. Sit with them, learn. I'm giving you 2 months to learn the jewelry business.
Fantastic.
That's how it started. I learned jewelry. I came, and first I landed in Fujairah.
Okay.
And in Fujairah, I started first overseas unit, legally sanctioned unit, as an extension, as a wholly owned subsidiary of our company in Bombay.
Right.
It was by name VSH UAE LLC.
Right.
It was dedicated to jewelry manufacturing. I started manufacturing almost close to about 70 to 80 kilos of jewelry every month. Amazing. With the help of about 75 craftsmen.
Wow.
Drawn from different parts of India. And that's how the story started in 95.
Okay.
Started making jewelry, started traveling every day from Fujairah to Dubai, Dubai to Abu Dhabi to Alain, and Alain back to Fujairah, traveling almost 600 kilometers a day.
Because you had to go to customers also.
All the customers
in
each town, manufacturing by myself,
Amazing.
marketing by myself, and also making trips every fortnight to Singapore to sell the jewelry in Singapore.
Wow.
Then buying the Singapore jewelry, getting it back here in Dubai and selling to Dubai customers. So it was an operation where although when I was in Fujairah, when I was in Dubai, I was with my family, but both my daughters were born around that time. One was school going, but we could meet each other only on Sundays, or Fridays rather, that time.
Really?
Because Friday was a holiday. Back then, yeah. Rest of the days, they couldn't see me because I used to come late by 12:30 in the night, leaving early morning at 6:30. Traveling maybe 400, 500 kilometers a day, carrying 2 bags of jewelry in the hand, knocking doors of each jeweler, and you being an astute salesman, you know what treatment you get at different places. So taking those accolades in stride, Crazy. I used to come back. So this was the routine once I came back to Dubai.
Right.
Dubai that time was so small that World Trade Center was the point when if I get a call at World Trade Center and I'm on my way to Abu Dhabi, I would say I've left Dubai. Please don't call me back.
Because at World Trade Center.
Yeah, World Trade.
Because that was the end of Dubai.
That was the end of Dubai. And then we had to take extra care to see that the car has enough fuel.
Right.
Because between Dubai and Abu Dhabi, there were only 2 petrol pumps, one on either side.
Right.
So you at least should have enough fuel to reach that point.
Wow, okay.
So fueling in Dubai, then fueling in Abu Dhabi, and then coming back was normally the routine.
Wow.
So that was Dubai. Uh, of course, Fujairah was further smaller than that. Virtually, if you're going out, say for a walk or whatever, you would at least raise your hands 10 times because everybody knew each other.
Yeah.
So was the story in Dubai. And when I described this to my chairman, saying that, look, Dubai is increasing, it's in size, it's becoming bigger. He said, Dr. Saab, I've seen Dubai when Burjuman was open. He was given an invitation and he said, who is going to go hell at that distance, at Burjuman? I don't know how they have started this center. So that was how Dubai kept on growing.
Right.
2001 and 2 perhaps was the time when exponential expansion of Dubai started. And then even being here for last 30 years, this city, what it has been, what it has become now, and what it will become in future, it's simply mind-boggling. And I'm very happy that I and my family also are a part of this growth. We came when it was just beginning to bloom.
Amazing.
And there's no pleasure like that to be part of a thriving city.
Absolutely.
So that's what Dubai is.
A lot of people say that when you live in Dubai, you get spoilt with the conveniences that we have in this part of the world, isn't it? Right now, we're not going to focus on Dubai. We're going to focus on Dr. Jadhav. Right. So now you're back in the fabric business. Obviously, you came back to Silkland, which used to be what Fabric Library is now, under Mr. Manish Doshi himself. Obviously, when he joined the business, how was it working with Mr. Doshi? How was he as a person?
I would put it this way, that when I came into the textile side of the business and I started working with Mr. Manish, I heaved a sigh of relief because first of all, I got a young entrepreneur to work with.
Right.
So that was one thing. So far I had worked with his father and all that. Right. And not that they treated me very well. They gave me all the scope to work. But again, at the end, there is a generation gap.
Of course.
And this was a time when digital revolution was happening.
Right.
We needed computers. We needed software. And that is where I found the elders taking a little backstep.
True.
But the one who supported me through and through was Mr. Manish.
Right.
And I would say from day one, the way the chord was struck with each other, it was like it is his greatness that he never ever made me feel that he's my boss.
Amazing.
Never. In fact, it grew so much on me that I always look at him as my younger brother.
Right.
And now I mean, looking at our equation, our chemistry, and perhaps Mr. Manish is not aware of it, I must tell it now. His father, when he was in his last days, he didn't make a statement and he said, Doc, Manish's hand is in your hand.
Wow.
And I don't see any other bigger reward than that in my entire career working with this family.
Amazing.
So that's how with Mr. Manish, it is like, and we have so many strategic decisions we took together, and most of the decisions were without even an iota of arguments. He respects whatever I do, and I've gone wrong so many times. But he respects it thoroughly. And for me, if he says on a new moon day, you have a moon there, I will say yes. That's the kind of confidence we have with each other. Wonderful person, wonderful human being. And one thing I must mention, and that is, we have a character called Raja Karna in Mahabharata, right. The epic of India. He was known for his large-heartedness.
Right.
It is said that he gave his life also because somebody wanted it.
Amazing.
If I have to really put it in those words, he is Raja Karan, as I call him, and as I introduce him to even all my teammates.
Right.
He is the one person who always thinks of welfare of all the guys working for him, as well as friends and people who come in contact with him.
Yeah.
So I have seen one person. Second, I learned from him, that is where perhaps we jailed well with each other, and that is, we both realized that honesty is the best policy.
100%.
He told me one thing, even if we do one shop and hardly any business, we will be still happy as long as we do it honestly.
Right.
And even if we do, and there was a time when we had more than 40 shops throughout UAE, we had humongous turnover. We were into retails once upon a time, then came in wholesales once upon a time. We changed our line of businesses. We did lots of things. But in all that, we did one thing. not one single act or thought was ever in the mind of me as well as him that we should be doing anything dishonest.
Amazing.
There were times when we have been taken for a ride by some unscrupulous element, and that happens in business, and we are okay with it. That's a part of business. But we never became a source of any kind of trouble, financial or otherwise, for any of our customers as well as our suppliers. And I think that's a great thing which he maintained. And it's I would put it this way, like presently working with Gary.
Yes.
It's another thing. So that's why I consider myself lucky, because you do move from one environment to other environment.
Yes.
But no one gets so much lucky that you get it in succession so good.
Correct.
And I say I'm lucky.
I was actually going to get to that, because one thing, before we actually get to working with Gary and, present day Fabric Library, as soon as I came in to Dubai, the one thing I noticed that everyone at Silkland, from every single person, from the guy serving the tea to even the GM, they speak so highly of you and Mr. Manish. Like, they're like, we are blessed to be working with two individuals like this. So that's why I think what you say about being honest and always doing the right thing in business, there's a saying that respect is earned, not asked for. So that's something I think you and Mr. Manish have gotten from the bigger group. And that's one thing I noticed immediately, that, man, these gentlemen have so much respect. There must be something that they must be doing for these guys. And I think everyone at Fabric Library would bear testament to that. And like you said, you and I, all of us at Fabric Library, are super lucky, because now we get to work with someone like Gary Neiman. It's like God wanted us to, continue on this path of working with amazing people. How did you feel when you first found out that, okay, there's going to be a change? Mr. Manish is going to take a step back from, obviously he's still a partner, he's still an owner of the company, but he has taken a step back from, being involved in it. And the owner of Brew Textiles, that is Gary, is going to come in and now take over and, bring in his management. What was your first reaction? What were some of your, obviously you would have been excited with the, prospective change that's coming in, but there may have been some concerns also, I'm sure. Was there mixed feelings?
It was a mixed bag. It was a mixed bag.
Right.
But one thing I must tell you here, and Mr. Manish is a witness to that. Almost 4 years back, before Fabric Library started, 4 years before that, I argued with Mr. Manish, saying that if you could talk to Jason or Gary or Brew, because I didn't know them directly that time, but we were working with them. So I said, you know what? Why is it that they are not working in Dubai?
Correct. Such a big
And
market.
I started as if I am the sales representative of Dubai city. I started counting how they can benefit by being here, how Brew as a company can benefit. And the subject was then left there, because Mr. Manish said that, look, I can suggest, but that's at the end, and I know, it's not a simple decision.
Right.
And fast forward 4 years, and the talk started. Right. And as I told you, Mr. Manish came and said that, Dr. Saab, this is a talk going on and everything. And I said, what's your gut feeling? He said, I feel lucky that, we're going in for this. I said, if you're so excited about it, so am I.
Okay.
So we say, first of all, we knew about Brew.
Right.
Now it's like saying, something so good is coming to you, and then being asked that, would you like to have it? So that's kind of a feeling we both had.
Right.
So that was one thing. Apprehension was there. As I said, it was a mixed bag. Apprehension was not for the prospectus.
Right.
It was definitely bright and brighter. There was no doubt about it. It's simple. Like we had we were at a particular height we reached, whatever you say. It's everybody has a relative assessment of that height.
Yes.
So we reached at a certain place, and we knew that now it requires a different push to move forward.
Correct.
And that was the push that came.
Exactly.
So we were all happy about it. Apprehension was on another thing. Apprehension was, how would he be as a person, as a leader,
okay,
as the in charge of everything.
Right. And could we match his expectations?
Can we match the expectation? One, would everybody gel well or not? Because it was not only a coming together of two companies, it was also a socio-cultural assimilation.
Exactly.
And that's where I was confident of my team being most open-hearted. That's fine, but would they be really in a position to really stand up to that particular requirement that is must for such kind of union.
Correct.
One. And second, how the whole thing will be structured, who will sit where, how are the boxes going to be filled, and because our organization luckily was always a matrix organization. We never believed in line hierarchy. That's why in Silkland we never had designation. In fact, I had no designation. In fact, I had a card which I wanted to print as motivator. That was the only qualification I wanted to put there. But except me, everyone had a card as manager. Otherwise, there was no designation.
Really?
And there was nobody reporting to each other. There were I would say, subtle hierarchies. They operate everywhere. But there was nothing like, it's company's work, right? So if you're in a position to do it, fine. If it is a warehouse work, I shall do it, even if I'm a CEO. Why? It's my company's work. Of course. So that was the culture that was inculcated. The apprehension was just meeting of these two things. Will it go smooth? It would have some amount of adjustments, and naturally it is expected, but would they be minor or major? And how would it go? It's like a mother expecting a baby. She knows that she's going to deliver a baby, and she expects and wants it to be healthy, etc. Yes. She knows what pain she's going to through. Yet there is definitely an apprehension. I just feel that let it go smooth. Almighty should help me. This is exactly the kind of apprehension we had, and I must say, it turned out to be perhaps not even imagined in dreams.
Amazing.
If we look back now, it's hardly 2 years. Yes. If we look back, I feel it's been almost 20 years.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of feeling we have, and I would put the entire credit of this to one individual. I mean, of course, everybody has contributed. There's no doubt about it. One individual who broke the ice in the very first meeting, the general meeting, sales meeting that we had, and it was Gary.
Yes.
Right. I realized, and I'm a student of management. I still study management. I'm actually appearing for my second MBA now.
Wow. Okay.
So I have studied leadership styles in management. And there are charismatic style, participative style, consultative style. There are so many styles. McGregor's theory style, the theory Y style, etc., etc. When I started looking at him, I realized that, look, here is a style which is completely different.
Nowhere in the books.
You can't classify it into a particular thing because he has a tinge of that. He has a tinge of this. And that's when I realized what really made me happy personally was I have somebody to learn from.
Yes.
Every now and then you do get a feel, if you don't get the right kind of environment to learn, you get a feel that you've reached the zenith.
True.
But this is where suddenly you feel that, oh, I need to cover a long distance yet.
Yeah.
That feeling, instead of making me feel otherwise, it made me feel happy because at least now I have a benchmark.
Yes.
All right. Try to get closer to that benchmark, and that itself is your progress.
Correct.
So that's why every day since his arrival on the scene is, I won't compare it with somebody who was not well and suddenly becomes, energetic. No. We were doing okay.
Of course.
But it's like you being put into a league from, let's say, a 60 kilometer an hour to a league of 200 kilometers an hour. So it's a completely new feeling.
Yes.
We are still basking in it. We are still enjoying it.
Yes.
Every day we are looking forward to it.
Correct.
And somehow this gentleman has a knack. He makes every day a new day.
100%.
So nothing goes on a plateau here. Everything is on a crescendo.
Yes.
And that's what Gary is.
And this is what he said on the podcast. He's excited like he's starting a new business as a youngster, and the best part is that the effect is on all of us. Like you said, you are learning now so much more.
It's infectious.
I think the reason for the success of this union is, he mentioned this in the podcast also, is that we've basically taken the two companies' strengths and combined it in a way that it's only forward. Because obviously a traditional, like you said, in Silkline, it was about everybody does everything, So that can-do attitude, let me do it attitude, plus Bruce ambitions, big ambitions,
Absolutely.
So here was a union that, okay, we've got ambitions, we've got guys who can match up and get those ambitions. So I think it's been a fantastic union. And, not just you, I myself who came in with the whole change, I think I've learned so much in the last 2 years. My whole outlook to life, my whole perspective of things have changed so much. It's amazing. You mentioned that you're still studying management, Doc.
Yes.
You seem to be a student for life, clearly, obviously.
I'm an academician. I would say that because I really love it, and not because I really have to prove anything to anyone. But
Yes.
the fact is that studying recharges me every time. It charges me. So what I did is I had anyway opted for a completely new different subjects when I appeared for my civil services because the medical subjects were not there. I had no choice.
Right.
So that's how I opted for two subjects, and I studied them so well and I liked them so well. I said, why don't I do a Master of Arts in those two subjects? So it started the chain.
Okay.
So first I did my Master of Arts in my mother tongue literature called Marathi literature.
Okay.
Then I got interested in history, and I'm a passionate person in history.
Okay.
I am a Master of Arts in history, Indian history. Then I got into the economics. That was a subject which I really fascinated me, mainly the macroeconomics.
Right.
So since I was a bureaucrat and I had to knew a little bit of macroeconomics, so I got into it and I completed my third Master of Arts into economics.
Wow.
Then I was bitten by a bug of philosophy, and philosophy has always been. If somebody asks me what would you like to be in case you rewrite the whole thing now, I would say I would love to be a professor of philosophy.
Yeah.
Because that's another area which really, really interests me. And then I got into philosophy, studied Western philosophy, Eastern philosophy, and became Master of Arts in philosophy.
That's four masters.
Four
then.
masters. After that, I got interested into reading the poetry of medieval time, mainly Wordsworth and Shelley. And I then chanced upon, I mean, everybody reads Shakespeare. I did read it when I was a student, like college student, etc., or school, etc. But I got back to Shakespeare again, and I started studying Shakespeare, and I realized that he is something which is not a common playwright, person. So I started restudying it, and I really liked it. I said, now only way to study it properly is to get into English literature.
Right.
That led me to my next Master of Arts in English literature.
Amazing.
So I completed that. So that's how I completed 5 Master of Arts in that. Then I went into management.
Okay.
So I started studying management. I studied I did my MBA in human resources, and that was perhaps the field in management I love most.
Right.
I really get excited in human resource dynamics.
Right.
In fact, one of the and when I did this, it was long back. So I decided to do my human resources again, and now I'm doing my MBA in human resources second time. Because the whole thing, the human resource field itself had changed after my first MBA.
Right.
And now I'm finding a lot of new subjects. Even the subjects that I studied have undergone a lot of change.
Right.
And in that, I'm doing a dissertation which is very close to my heart. I'm into the final stage of my MBA, and the only thing that is left is to do a dissertation. And this dissertation is going to be on a completely new human resource dynamics. There is not a single dissertation done so far in human resources in MBA on this, and that is managing the physical and mental health of the employees, a missing cornerstone of human resource dynamics. That's the topic of my dissertation. And that is what I am doing it in reference to our own company.
Exactly.
Where this being the only company
Yes.
where it is implemented in that spirit.
I was going to come to that point next because you brought up human resources. I think there's a lot to learn from you in terms of man management and leadership and, making the best use of the right resources in the company. Do you have a philosophy that you follow for that, or is it just you think it's just in you naturally that you figure out who's good at what and then you point them in the right
Exactly.
direction?
So it's both. It's bit of ergonomics and a bit of intuition.
Right.
So I says empirically you have interacted with so many people. You actually to dissect a person, and you come to know that every person has strengths.
100%.
Admitted, he also has weaknesses.
Of course.
But what dominates in his behavior is what I normally try to see.
Right.
And when I see that he's dominated by the fundamental aspect, which is good, which is strong in his nature, and the weaknesses are there, but they can definitely be subdued over a period of time.
Right.
And that's when I realized that, okay, this is a person fit in the company. First of all, he's welcome in the company because he brings with him a lot of positive things, a lot of skill sets that we need, and a lot of human skill sets.
Correct.
So you have a role skill set and a human skill set. I try to see first the human skill set.
Right.
Because role skill set is something which you can work upon. Human skill set is something difficult. You still can work upon, but it takes time.
Correct.
So that's why in the entire period of about 28 years of Silkland, we never advertised a single position, but recruited everyone by just interviewing them.
Right.
And then we had people from absolutely diverse background. Perhaps I took a cue from myself that you don't really need to be a person from the same background to excel in that background. If a doctor can be here to cut the fabric, then perhaps a lawyer can become a chief accountant, and that is the case even now.
Yeah.
Our chief accountant is a lawyer,
Amazing.
right? He's an LLB guy, a law guy, but he's doing that. So I came across a tailor who was actually doing a small tailoring, and I realized that this guy is a go-getter.
Wow.
He comes into the company, and today he's our PRO, he's our public relation officer.
Amazing.
Who handles the entire portfolio of all our companies and human resources and the laws and contracts and everything so smoothly that we hardly ever get bothered by any of those issues. So that's how the recruitment part of it or onboarding part of it comes into the picture.
That's why you have a cricket commentator selling fabrics for you.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's why I was never surprised when I came across you, and that's the reason why I told you that. The reason why I called you Harsha Bhogle in making is not just to praise you or just to put it. The whole idea is you never know that you have so many qualities, but sometimes what happens is you get into a role where your inner competencies, your inner urge, and everything aligns so well. That's the field that you are supposed to be in.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Right. So that's about discipline. Obviously, that's about leadership and man management. Now we come to discipline. And I think you are a big proponent of it, obviously, because you come from a medical background, your family is from a very disciplined background, like you said, your wife's from the army. And that's something I've seen instilled quite a bit in our team with our health regimens, with our habits, with the way we conduct ourselves. I think Gary is extremely proud of the way you've, sort of groomed this team towards ensuring that their health is the biggest priority. When did it sort of come into action, this whole focus? I know you're a doctor, so you've always been focused about health, but ensuring that translates into the wider team about making sure that they take care of their health and they go to the gym regularly and they stay in shape. When did these whole ideals come about? When did you realize that, okay, you know what, it's about time this team got serious about this?
So before that, I would like to correct the statement that you said that being a doctor, you would be definitely taking care of your health. Unfortunately, that's not the case with majority of doctors.
Really?
It's
Okay.
Unfortunately, I
Really?
belong to that field, so I know.
Okay.
What happens during the course of your profession is that not every time you implement what you are supposed to advise.
Right.
And unfortunately, that is true even for the medical profession. So with me, it so happened that I also had all the unhealthy habits and everything after becoming, even while doing this surgery. Like I was a general surgeon, and I'm ashamed to say now that between every surgery that I used to do, I used to smoke.
Wow.
And I was a chain smoker, smoking almost 2 packets or minimum 3
cannot believe
packets
when you say that.
a day, and that was the
I
case.
deny to accept that.
Alcohol was, of course, the part of medical fraternity. Every conference, every some small tiny reason, and there would be some alcohol somewhere. So all kind of unhealthy habits are there and were there with me. But what happened was, sometime around when I was in Fujairah, it was around 99, 2000. And I do my medical checkups every day, being a doctor, and I have my friends who have a pathological lab. So it's like just going back to India on vacation, even before going home, giving the blood and then going home, kind of a story. And once he just called me saying that, Doc, can you just come and give your sample again? I said, what happened? I was so confident about my health. He said, no, I just see that there's a slight sugar rise. I said, come on, I don't have a family history of diabetes.
Right.
And I do exercise. Of course, that time what exercise I was doing, I thought it is enough. So I was feeling that I'm doing exercise, and he takes the blood again, and he comes back and says, sorry, it looks like you're beginning to show sugar in your blood.
Wow. Okay.
That was something which I really, got into a complete different sphere. I said, I need to do something about this. So I said, what can I do? So I knew how the mind works.
Right.
And although you call me disciplinarian, my mind also tries to go away from discipline as many times
battle.
unless I put it back into the line,
It's a constant
So
battle, isn't it?
I started thinking about what exercise do. I said I must do some running. So running was something which I decided to do. But I realized one thing. I started my running. For 2 months I was running. And the distance that I was running every day was a great 1 kilometer. And when I started thinking about it, I realized that, why is it that I'm not able to run more? And the answer was I was not healthy. And that is why I was finding it as a punishment. And that's the time when I realized if I give a target to my mind of 2 kilometers, I'll feel like doing 1. If I said 10 kilometers, my mind will tell me 5. Right? I said, let me do one thing. Let me give a challenge to my mind, which my mind will find very difficult to attempt. And I said, I will do a full marathon. Now, here was a man who couldn't run more than 1 kilometer, decided to do 42 kilometers marathon.
A full marathon.
A full marathon.
Okay.
And I started running. And every time I used to feel bad that, look, 3 kilometers I couldn't do. And I'm thinking of 42. Then said 4 kilometers, thinking of 42. And as the time passed, the health started becoming better. I became in good shape. And then I did 10, and then I did 15, and then I did 20, then I did 25, and then I did my first Dubai marathon.
Amazing.
I took 2 of my colleagues from my team, from the company, to help me while doing this marathon. And then that was the first time I realized that it is not only possible, but important to keep your own health.
Right.
And I said, being a doctor, if I cannot look after my health, I have no moral authority to advise anyone, including my wife and my children.
Correct.
And then since that time till date, including today, I run every day.
Right.
I run regularly. And then I realized that if I have to run regularly, I need to bring discipline in my life. So I started changing my diet.
Right.
I changed my diet. I changed my diet to an extent after studying, because medicine is still my first passion. I do spend at least 2 to 3 days in a week, at least an hour to hour and a half for studying medicine.
Wow.
I'm in touch with all the latest journals.
Okay.
I read a lot about health now. I'm not reading much about my surgery, but I'm reading a lot about general health.
Right.
And that is how I started picking up those new things that are coming in. That is one of the reasons why that I'm off grains for last 6 years.
Okay.
I haven't touched rice.
Really?
I haven't touched any of the grains. I'm only on vegetables and fruits and nuts. That's what all I eat. I don't take breakfast nowadays. I have never seen 9:30 p.m. in my life. Normally by 9 I'm asleep.
Wow.
I always get up by 4:30. I'm up. I have enough sleep of mine. I use a glucose monitor for a continuous glucose monitoring for last almost 2 years. I ensure that the health, and I'm reaping rich benefits of it. My energy level is always high, irrespective of the time. I sleep in a latent period of my sleep is hardly 5 or 10 seconds. I never had an occasion where I have gotten into midnight, because I never seen midnight. I sleep and then I just get up. There's nothing in between.
Really?
A good 7.5 to 8 hours sleep I need, I get it. And that's it. I run regularly. I do gym. I do sometimes the HIIT training, as they call it. So trying to keep myself fit. As this was going on, some of the people in the company were definitely influenced by it,
Of course.
but not to a complete extent. And in the process, about 4 years back, or rather 3 years back, it so happened that we lost one of our colleague in one of our office in India. He was just 42, not even 42, less than that. And he called me the day day previous to his untimely passing. He said, "Sir, I just finished the inauguration of my new home and I'm tired. So can I take a day off?" I said, all your relatives must have come. It's a housewarming. It is your first house. Take your own time and cool down. It's not necessary a day. You can take 2 or 3 days off. And came the news that next day morning he passed away by an heart attack.
Wow.
When this happened, Mr. Manish was the first person who was badly shaken. He said, if this can happen to one of my employee, and we always consider all my colleagues, I mean, all our team members as our family members. So if my one family member has succumbed to heart attack, there could be many of them who are waiting for it. Who knows? Because we haven't done their medicals.
Correct.
And then being a medico, he started asking me questions. And I said, yes, you are very right. No one can give guarantee unless you're sure of yourself through your medical tests and through your regime that you are healthy. And then you leave that 1 or 2% to the luck possibility, whatever you call it.
Fate and destiny. Yeah.
But 98% is something in your hand. And then he said, what can we do for our children? What can we do for our boys?
people, yeah.
I said, let's do one thing. Let's put in the regimen for the health. And I said, look, it's not going to be accepted with, a smile on the face. Of course, it's going to be a wince there,
will be
but we'll
rebellion
turn
in the
that wince
start.
into a smile by going slowly and steadily, because they will realize how important it is.
And they see the results.
Yeah,
They see the output.
that's how the journey started. And then and that's where I said, it is the, he's a gracious person, Mr. Manish. He said, all the expense that you require to make them healthy shall be borne by the company.
Wow.
And if the company cannot do it, then personally from me. Wow. And that's how we started. So we got a gym instructor, we got gym memberships, we made it compulsory for everyone to go to the gym 3 times a week. And on the top of it, every Sunday we go for a run.
Yes.
And that too, not 9 o'clock, not 8 o'clock. I'm so proud of my boys that they get up 3 o'clock on a Sunday.
Wow.
Now, know who gets up at 3 o'clock on a Sunday.
People go to sleep at the time.
That too, that's when they go to sleep. And that's the time when they get up, get ready. And by 4:30, they're on the ground, and our feet start pounding the ground at 4:30. By that time, it is 6 o'clock. When Dubai is yet to wake up, we are done with the first grand exercise of the Sunday. We do 10 kilometers, 15 kilometers practice. Another 2 months, we'll be having our marathon. I'm proud to say that Fabric Library is one company where in one go, 75 to 76 team members from our company participate in a half marathon. So you join any half marathon, Dubai Creek Striders, Ras Al Khaimah Marathon, Kalba Marathon. If you see a group having Fabric Library jersey on their body, that's our team.
Amazing.
Yes.
I'll make a confession at this point, doctor. When I first came in and I saw all of these happening, like, why are they so obsessed? I mean, let people be. Why are they so obsessed with like getting people to run and going to the gym and all that? So initially it was, I think for me in the start, it was like, why are they even doing this? And then it turned into a bit of shame. Like, man, look at all these guys. They're all fit and healthy. And I'm here with my protruding belly and I can't climb the stairs without puffing and panting. And that shame then later turned into inspiration.
That's it.
And I'm like, listen, if all these boys can do this, what's stopping me? And then thanks to your constant push, thanks to Gary's constant push, I decided this is it. I need to start taking this thing seriously. Went on a strict diet. I'm still feel guilty of
that's why you're in the best shape. I know when
you've seen me.
Yeah,
when I
I've
came.
seen you.
Exactly.
I've seen you.
Exactly. So it was really, it's inspiring. Like I said in the start, it's like, why are they so obsessed with it? But then when you start seeing the results and the output and how your quality of life just changes.
It's infectious.
Fantastic.
And that's why in our company, like most of the people are succumbing to the infections.
Precisely.
In our company, we have an infection called health. Yes. And that health virus is everywhere.
Yes.
Everywhere. Yes. Every day, even now, every day, whether it is Mr. Gary or Mr. Manish, we talk, even when we are eating, we talk of health.
I've heard those conversations.
So
it's crazy.
We inspire each other. And frankly speaking, we have a colossus inspiring us, and that's Gary. Because if you want to really take health to a completely astronomical level, in practice,
that is him.
That epitome is Gary. Yes.
He's all 56 something and he's a 6-pack and off 50s. Yeah, we can run faster than most of us.
He's amazing. No words.
Doc, we've spoken for quite a while now. Time has
Yes.
passed. I didn't even realize. Right. Now you've worn many, many hats in your life. And like you said, you've done like 5 masters and been a doctor, been an IS officer, sold gold, sold fabric, been a team leader, inspired people like myself in doing so many things. Now, what would you like Dr. Jadhav to be remembered as in the future? Like when someone says Dr. Jadhav, what's the first thing that you would like for them to come in their mind? Who was Dr. Jadhav?
Well, if they don't remember me, that's fine with me.
No, of course.
But if they remember what I wanted basically for all of us to have, and it's not that I have got something which I really want to distribute. No.
Let me rephrase it.
Yeah.
What is Dr. Jadhav's legacy to the world?
Yeah. The legacy is very simple. First, make the instrument through which you're going to work the best possible instrument. Else you cannot deliver the best. Second, irrespective of what you do, it could be a scavenging job or a job of a prime minister. Put yourself fully into it And then you really don't need to look at the results. They come as a secondary effect. The primary effect is the happiness, the bliss, the hedonistic feeling that you get in what you're doing. That's whenever you will feel that how can I run and get to my place of my work, that is the time when you realize that the work is really grown on you. You are not doing the work is coming out of you. So that's why your role and your work, they will align so well. And that's how the legacy would be. If at all I get one statement when I'm not around for any reason, if one statement comes that, whatever good I'm doing, part of that I learned from him. I think I will feel I fulfill the existence itself there in that place.
Fantastic. An Arabic term comes to mind, and I'm sure you know about it. It's a word called ihsan, meaning excellence. Anything you do it with ihsan. You do it with excellence, and I think that's something I will learn from you, and of course with Gary as well. And there's so much more that we can learn from you as we go on. Anyway, I keep reiterating that the past 2 years have been such an amazing journey, and I'm sure we've just scratched the surface. There's so much more to gain. There's so much more to achieve as a company, as together. And I've seen how the two teams have come together. It's as if we weren't separate entities at all. It's as if we've been working together for a long time. Doc, I thank you for who you are and what you've inspired us to be. And I'm sure there's so much more that you'll teach us as we go along. And, hopefully one day we can match up to your expectations at full. Is there anything you'd like to say before we wrap up?
Thank you so much. And the last statement would be, since you spoke of the Arabic word, I would say that for me, all these people who came in my life, people like Gary, people like Mr. Manish, I feel I have a wali.
Yes.
That's the word I would like to
friend
use.
you can confide.
So it's walad.
Yeah.
It's wali. So they have all given me what I have become. So this could be perhaps the last statement, is to give a big thanks to everybody, even people with whom I couldn't do well, or with people with whom I couldn't really move forward. They have also taught me so much. So thanks to everyone. They have been my guru. It's maybe a small percentage or a big percentage, but entire journey has been beautiful. And of course, hats off to my real inspiration, my wife.
Of course, we end it with those. I don't think I can add any more to that than last words for this episode. Right. Thank you so much for watching.
Thank you.
We'll be back with another episode of the Fabric Library podcast with amazing conversations just like this. Until next time. Bye-bye.